Good morning. I'm not making a bow today. It's in the 20s and we got 50-mile-an-hour wind gust. But, I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I've been thinking about my recurve problems that I've been having. I figured out what it was. I figured out why I'm having such a problem with the recurves. Right there is a 5.5-inch radius jig, okay, that I made. And if you made a complete circle, that would be a quarter of it, okay? That's a radius, okay? So what happened is I'm thinking of making a recurve kind of like a laminate, okay? I'm putting these big curves in a hunk of wood. And I'm trying to tiller them, bend them down. This is like a super curve, okay? Look at the jig. Okay, in order to till a bow, to get the bow to bend to the weight I want, right? You have to bend it down, and the slightest little bit of movement is magnified at the tip. Okay, down here, not so much, right? So instead of using, like you see guys all the time, they don't talk about making like a real recurve. They use another term like a flip tip or something. So actually what it is if I can, here's the recurve I made, okay? Here's the recurve that I made with a big curve. It had the big curve on it, you see? And about time I got done bending it, okay, I took the back set out. This was up. I took the back set out of it by bending it and putting so much stress and forces on the wood to tiller it. Okay, that I came up with this bow here, and I had to lighten the weight. And I got a 28-pound bow. So what I realized is you can't put all that force on with that big curve. You need even though I went from like I started a year and a month ago. And I started with a 7.5 radius jig playing around. And I said, oh, that's really too big. It looks like big, ridiculous curves. And then I went to a 5.5-inch. But what I'm looking at now is if you have a circle, you don't want to heat it up to a quarter. Okay, you don't want to use a quarter of a circle. You want to use less. Okay, you want to put less of a bend in here. If you put less of a bend in there, like now, right? Let's say now I got to till this, right? If this came off the jig now and I tilled it, it would be easier to bend down. It wouldn't be magnified, twisting or having problems with the string. I was starting with a less. But what happened was as I tilled this, the back set came out. It went the opposite way. You see how it bent down from the forces? You saw my bow toxic curves. I had a grain lift, okay? And why did I have the grain lift? Because those limbs are so big. I'm putting so much leverage on the end. I'm putting so much leverage on the end to bend it down, that all the forces are being applied here and the grain lifted up, just trying to get it to be tilled, okay? So, like I said, it's so windy today. Look at the jig. You see the jig on the end? It blew over and it cracked. I'm going to try and repair that. And the only reason why I got a 26.5-inch draw. And this was a 66-inch bow, right? So if I was going to use that jig, I'd have to put the full-length bow here, bend it, and after it was bent, I'd have to cut it. And that would shorten up the length of the bow a little bit. The only way I could use that jig is if I made a full-length bow, 66 inches, curved it, right? and then I cut a couple of inches off. That's the only way I could use that jig. So, or make a new jig and keep it 66 inches. But I hope this isn't too confusing for you. But the bottom line is, if you want to make a recurve, it's not like a laminate curve. You know, you got to get the idea out of your head. And it's not going to be a quarter. It's not going to be a quarter. Looking at that jig, that's a quarter. 5.5 inch radius, it's a quarter. It's got to be less. You know, maybe not an eighth, maybe a little bit more. We'll have to see. I have to play around with it, okay? But the whole idea is, if you use that quarter radius and you fire harden it to tiller it, that big curve will put so much leverage that you'll actually remove back set, you'll put strain, you'll defeat the purpose of the recurve. The recurve idea is to put a little more pressure here, yes, a little more pressure here, make it a little faster, but too much, you're going in the wrong direction. It'll break, and you'll need wider limbs, and if you've got to go real wide, you're taking off the speed, you're taking off the weight, you're adding weight to try to make speed, all right? You're kind of defeating the purpose. You're fighting the forces, all right? So if you just make a regular bow, like your design you were going to make, and you put and I hate the term flip tip. I don't like it. You know, figure out what it is. You know, an eighth radius, an 1/8 inch radius on there or something instead of the 1/4 inch radius, or more. You know what I mean? A little bit more. So that's the problem. The answer to the problem of tillering and adjusting these recurves here is to make a less radius on the bow. Put it on the fire hardening jig, right? We'll put it on the jig with less of a radius, like down here, okay? And you'll have a little bit of back set. You may maintain the back set, or you may be level. But look at this going in the opposite direction from the force and the stress, okay? So that's it. I'm only out here freezing to death because a light bulb went off of my head, and I realized all the forces that go into making a recurve. You can't have a 1/4 of a radius. It's got to be less, especially if you're going to fire on it, put a little back set, and you could see the forces, the opposing forces of the leverage, right, on this here. Instead of it having a back set, it bends the other way, and it didn't blow apart. This is a really fast little 28-pound bow, all right, but it kind of defeats the purpose. Okay, here's the design on the longbow I've been using for a faster longbow. It starts out at a 1/2 inch, goes down for 8 inches to 3/4, and this winds up after you take the sand these rough edges off from cutting. It winds up being almost straight, okay? And then it goes down to the mid limb, 1.25 inches, and then the fade outs are 1.5 inches. And this is leverage here, this thin piece here. When I put the string grooves in, I mark like 2 inches down, and that's a tillering mark, okay? So I have 2 inches down. I'm going to bend it and put the ruler from the fade out to that 2 inches past the string cutout, okay? And I tiller it. And this is a very fast design. There's a little leverage, I would say. And what you're doing with a recurve is that curve, that bend, is the leverage, okay? So that's why I say these are just as fast as a recurve, this design, okay? Because you're accomplishing the same thing by putting a little leverage, by tillering it down a couple of inches and having a skinny limb design. You're getting the same, just about the same speed out of a recurve. All right, the recurve, the idea of the recurve is that curve, the leverage as it's bending down, you want it to spring back. Well, same thing's happening with this speed design, okay, on the longbow. So that's it. Woke up 5 o'clock in the morning thinking about it, and then I came to realize that when I went in the closet, I said, let me pull out some of the like ILF limbs I have, and they're laminates, you know, and they're meant to bend. All right, this is a hunk of wood, and here, look. This is kind of like a super curve, okay, and this is a standard one. Actually, they both got that big super curve on them, okay, but look at that curve. This is what I was putting on. This is what I was putting on wood, and like I said, a little this way, a little that way as you're trying to flex it, and the limb's out of alignment. Whereas if the bend was here, look, it's not magnified as much, okay? So that's it. Don't use quarter radius. Use less than quarter radius. And I am going to make a bow just to prove the fact, all right? I may have to make a new backset jig too. I'll probably make a new backset jig, or I'll try and fix this one and make a 64-inch bow. But that's it. I had to tell you why I kept failing at making recurves. It's because they're not, I was over-exaggerating the recurve. That's the bottom line. You know, you put too much force on the wood. It's not meant to take that force to tiller and bend. It's not, all right? So that's it. Thanks for watching. I'm freezing out here. Like I said, it's in the teens, 50-mile-an-hour gust. The reason that broke, see the end broke? Because we had a big gust of wind, and I only had one clamp on it, and it fell over and broke. But all I'm going to do is go in the house and warm up, and I may repair that jig. All right, so you're going to see me make one more recurve in the future, and it's not going to be, I hate that name flip tip. I don't like it. But it's going to be less of a radius. It's not going to be quarter radius. Okay, so we'll see what we come up with. But that's the answer to the problems. Okay, you don't want that big radius. And maybe you'll even maintain a little back set, okay, if you only use a little bit of a radius. So that's all. Thanks for watching. I'm going to warm up. It's ridiculously cold today.